On the 22nd of July 2026, civil rights attorney Ben Crump stood at a podium at the NAACP National Convention in Chicago and announced the findings of an independent autopsy commissioned by the Wells family. The result was not what anyone was hoping for. Cause and manner of death? Undetermined, pending further investigation. The forensic pathologist who conducted the examination, Dr. Roger A. Mitchell, Jr., a board-certified forensic pathologist and president of the National Medical Association, could not close the case. He could not give Nolan's family an answer. 3 weeks after an 18-year-old did not come home from a 4th of July boat trip, the most qualified expert his family could find looked at everything available and said, "We do not know." That is where this case stands right now.
To perform a second autopsy examination on the body of Nolan Xavier Wells. Name of decedent, Nolan Xavier Wells, age 18 years old, race black, gender male, date of death unknown. Second autopsy date was performed on July 10th, 2026. Preliminary findings, and this is significant. Focal area of red discoloration in the soft tissue of the back of the head, the occipital region. He said the etiology is unknown at this time. He said the body was received after the initial autopsy. He said the body had marked decompensation. He said coronal incision of the scalp, brain removal, Y-shaped incision of the anterior torso, and he talked about the organs being removed, as is common, accompanied in the body cavity. And that when you have an autopsy, the organs are removed from the body and they are dissected and examined, and then they are put back in a bag within inside the body. So when they're buried, their remains will all be with them. But in this occasion, if there's going to be a second autopsy, then the organs are put in the body cavity so the second pathologist could be able to examine the organs as well. Very significant for Dr. Mitchell was that the anterior inner neck structures were absent, not received with the body, and we'll explain that in just a minute. And then it talks about the additional procedures performed during the second autopsy, and we'll go into the paragraphs on that there because he explains it better in his narrative.
Nolan Xavier Wells grew up in Ocean Springs, Mississippi, a city on the Gulf Coast that takes football seriously and tends to remember the players who represent it well. At Ocean Springs High School, Nolan was a multi-sport athlete who carried himself in a way that made an impression on everyone who coached or taught him. Ocean Springs head football coach Jake Bramlett described him publicly after his death with words that went beyond the standard tribute. He said Nolan was the kind of son, teammate, friend, and student that every coach hopes to have in a program, someone who carried himself with humility, treated others with respect, worked hard, and led by example. He said Nolan's character spoke louder than his accomplishments, and that the entire football family was grieving alongside his parents. Ocean Springs High School principal Dr. Jacob Dykes added that Nolan would be remembered as an extremely kind and hard-working young man who left a lasting impression on his teachers, coaches, teammates, and community. On National Signing Day in February 2025, Nolan was part of a group of Ocean Springs teammates heading to Southwest Mississippi Community College together, where he played as a wide receiver. He called it a blessing to share the moment with his best friends and teammates, to all be going to college in the same direction. He was about to head back for pre-season training when July 4th happened. A family friend who had employed Nolan before he left for college described him simply as the kind of young man who still said, "Yes, sir," and meant it every time he said it. He said it left something in people's hearts. His mother, Christine Wansley, wrote on Facebook after his body was found, "My heart is broken for our sweet son who was always willing to cheer and uplift others. Nolan was a special soul." On the 4th of July 2026, Nolan traveled to Horn Island with a group of friends to celebrate Independence Day. The boat departed from a private dock in the Ocean Springs area, according to Jackson County Sheriff John Ledbetter. Horn Island is a federally protected barrier island, approximately 10 miles off the Mississippi Gulf Coast. No facilities, no shelters, no communications infrastructure of any kind. Nolan was last seen on the island around 3 p.m. Roughly 90 minutes later, the boat carrying his group left Horn Island and returned to the mainland. Nolan was not on it. When he did not come home, his mother, Christine Wansley, reported him missing and took to social media to ask for help. Law enforcement launched a search operation that involved the Jackson County Sheriff's Office, the U.S. Coast Guard, the Mississippi Department of Marine Resources, the Gulf Islands National Seashore, and the United Cajun Navy, which assisted in search efforts on the water. On the morning of July 6th, a U.S. National Park Service ranger found a body in the water off the northwestern tip of Horn Island at approximately 8:45 a.m. Jackson County Coroner Bruce Lind Jr. responded to the scene and later confirmed to news outlets that there were no immediately obvious signs of trauma on the body. By approximately 2 p.m. on July 6th, Coroner Lind confirmed via dental records that the body was Nolan Xavier Wells. He was 18 years old. Among the most discussed details in this case is what happened with Nolan's phone. According to his family, the friends who returned to shore that afternoon had Nolan's phone with them. The phone had not stayed on the island with Nolan, it came back to land with the group. When Christine Wansley tracked it through Life 360 and Snapchat location data, the phone was showing activity on the mainland, not on Horn Island. A family friend named Tashina went with Christine's sister to physically retrieve the phone after they tracked its location. When Nolan's family eventually went through the device, his Snapchat had been wiped. Nolan's mother said he had 2 accounts and that both had nothing on them, no saved videos, no recent posts, despite the fact that Snapchat content typically takes at least 24 hours to disappear naturally without manual deletion. Sheriff Ledbetter acknowledged the phone situation publicly, confirming that the friends on the boat had taken Nolan's phone back with them, while stating that Nolan, by their account, had voluntarily stayed behind. Nolan's parents told investigators and media they did not believe that. His father, Elmore Wansley, told CBS Mornings directly, "No, he wouldn't. Nolan always stays with the group. If you be with me, you come back with me." His phone came back without him. His Snapchat was wiped, and nobody has explained either of those 2 things on the record yet. If you want to be here when someone finally does, subscribe to Crimes That Happened right now. We are tracking every development in this case as it comes in the toxicology, the official autopsy, the full investigative outcome. 3 different people gave 3 different accounts of when Nolan was last seen on Horn Island, approximately 3 p.m., 3:30 p.m., or closer to 5 p.m. None of those accounts have been officially reconciled. A young man named Trayston Shepard gave multiple public interviews describing the day and calling himself one of Nolan's closest friends, at one point describing him as his best friend. Nolan's own mother, Christine Wansley, heard those interviews and told a reporter she had never met Trayston Shepard. He had never been to their home. Not once. Shepard told media he took a boat back from Horn Island in the late afternoon, but that Nolan stayed behind with a girl he had met there that day. He said the confrontation captured in a video circulating online was him, not Nolan. The 2 people Nolan's family identified as his actual closest friends said the idea of Nolan choosing to stay behind by himself did not align with who he was. Sheriff Ledbetter confirmed that investigators have conducted extensive witness interviews and have been actively seeking photos, videos, and eyewitness accounts from anyone who was on the northwestern part of Horn Island on July 4th, specifically those depicting alleged altercations or containing images of Nolan Wells. An anonymous witness statement began circulating online describing a sequence of events that, if accurate, would significantly change the picture of what happened to Nolan on and after July 4th. That account named several individuals, including people referred to as Wyatt, Evan, Morgan, Andrew, Warren, Lucy, and Natalia, and described a confrontation at a pool party allegedly held after the group returned from Horn Island. This account is unverified. It was not released by law enforcement. It has not been confirmed by any named, on-record source. The Jackson County Sheriff's Office has not publicly acknowledged it as part of the official investigation record. It exists the same way a lot of things have circulated around this case, loudly, online, and without a single checkable fact attached to it. Repeating it as confirmed would be doing a disservice to Nolan's family and to anyone trying to actually follow what investigators are building. What has been confirmed is that Sheriff Ledbetter explicitly asked the public for evidence of any altercations on the island that day, which signals that the investigation is not closing the door on that possibility. That is different from confirming it happened. Online commentator Secret Service Sam was among the creators who amplified an anonymous tip from someone claiming to have information about the case and to have spoken with investigators. The tipster would not share what they actually witnessed and cited concerns about tainting the investigation. A source who refuses to state what they know is not a source. The Mississippi State Medical Examiner's Office conducted the official autopsy on July 7th, the day after Nolan's body was identified. As of this reporting, those results have not been released publicly. Coroner Bruce Lynn Jr. has said the state's findings are being held up by pending toxicology results, which can take several weeks to process. Ben Crump's team commissioned a separate, independent autopsy, which was performed on July 10th by Dr. Roger A. Mitchell Jr. Those preliminary findings were announced on July 22nd in Chicago. Dr. Mitchell found no fractures and no deep tissue injuries on Nolan's body. He noted significant decomposition, which created challenges for establishing a definitive cause and manner of death. He could not determine whether Nolan was conscious when he entered the water. He could not determine how he ended up in the water. He specifically stated that he could not rule out that non-accidental factors contributed to Nolan's death. Crump described the condition of Nolan before he entered the water as the crux of the matter. He also publicly questioned a discrepancy in reporting. While authorities said Nolan was found wearing only swim trunks, the United Cajun Navy told the family he was found wearing a t-shirt as well. The Mississippi State Medical Examiner released a statement saying its autopsy was conducted in accordance with standard procedures and that it would not comment on the independent findings. It urged the public to remain patient and to avoid drawing conclusions before the investigation is complete. The state and the family have now each commissioned their own examination of what happened, and neither one has produced a definitive answer. If you think that matters, and it does, drop a comment below telling us what you think the undetermined finding means for this case. And if you haven't subscribed yet, do it now. When the official state results finally drop, we will break them down the same way we broke down everything else in this video. The Jackson County Sheriff's Office has confirmed that investigators have interviewed dozens of witnesses in connection with this case. Sheriff John Ledbetter has said publicly that there is no information at this time to indicate that a crime occurred, while also stating clearly that the investigation remains active and ongoing, and that no possibility has been ruled out. The FBI is working alongside the Jackson County Sheriff's Office. This is not internet speculation. Sheriff Ledbetter confirmed it himself on camera. The Jackson County District Attorney has stated that this case is a priority, and that once the law enforcement investigation is complete, the findings will be forwarded to a grand jury to determine whether any charges are warranted. That step has not yet occurred because the investigation is still underway. Crump, retained by the family on July 7th, the day after the body was identified, stated publicly that he has not spoken directly with the young men who were traveling with Nolan, because they had each obtained their own legal representation. On July 20th, a memorial service was held in Ocean Springs for Nolan. Attorney Ben Crump was present, alongside Nolan's parents, Christine and Elmore Wansley. Reverend Al Sharpton also spoke at the service and had previously appeared at a press conference in New York representing the family's call for a full and transparent investigation. Hundreds of community members marched through Ocean Springs, demanding answers and accountability in the weeks following Nolan's death. This case has drawn national attention in part because of what the photographs from the boat trip show. Nolan appears in group photos from the outing as one of the very few black individuals in what was otherwise an all-white group of friends, though at least one other black friend was reportedly also on the trip. For many people, particularly in Mississippi, where the history of racial injustice is not a distant abstraction, those photos prompted immediate and serious concern. People began drawing comparisons and asking questions that had nothing to do with the currents around Horn Island. CNN law enforcement analyst Charles Ramsey, who is black and who served as police commissioner in both Philadelphia and Washington, D.C., said publicly that he understands why some Mississippians are concerned about whether race played a role in how Nolan died or in how the case has been handled. But he also said that so far, nothing in the investigation's timeline is unusual for a case of this nature, and that anyone jumping to conclusions before the autopsies are released would be doing a disservice to the family. Nolan's grandfather, Christopher Wells Sr., posted publicly after the body was found and asked for the same thing. He wrote that his daughter Christine and her husband Elmore had prayed for a positive outcome, but had also had to prepare for the worst. He asked for space for the family to grieve and asked people to be mindful of the finger-pointing happening online. He asked the community to let law enforcement do their job. Nolan Xavier Wells was 18 years old. He was supposed to be in football training right now, heading back to Southwest Mississippi Community College for his sophomore season, doing what he'd been doing since he first stepped on a field, showing up, leading by example, and saying, "Yes, sir," like he meant it. Instead, his mother says she doesn't know when she's going to smile again. His coach, Jake Bramlett, said Nolan's character spoke louder than his accomplishments. His principal, Dr. Jacob Dykes, said he left a lasting impression on everyone he came across. His father, Elmore Wansley, said his son was the kind of person who stayed with the group always. 2 autopsies have been performed. One has been released with an undetermined finding. One is still pending toxicology. The FBI is involved. The district attorney is watching. The grand jury is waiting. And the Jackson County Sheriff's Office has asked the public for help filling in what happened on that island on July 4th. This case is not closed. The answer is not in yet. When it is the autopsy results, the toxicology, whatever the grand jury decides, we will be back here with exactly what was found. Subscribe to Crimes That Happened so you don't miss it. We will not move on until this case is resolved. And drop a comment below letting us know where in the world you are watching from. We want to know how far Nolan's story has traveled.